Hey YouTube, I'm back again. Um, I updated it this time, and or not updated it, but you know what I mean. So apparently, like once I figured out how to edit stuff, the arguments in this video, or you've seen the link. Essentially, there was some very, very big misunderstandings that took place, and to break them down Barney style, here's what happened. Okay, here's an example. I said something like John picked up a pen. Okay, John is brave. And from that statement, it was deduced that I was meaning that John was brave for picking up the pen. I never said that. I said two different things. I said there's an act and that there's a quality of this individual, that is apparent to me that I see and that I will attest to. So that's two very separate things. And what happened is a lot of the people on these forums kind of connected the dots, um, or connected the two, saying, "Oh, well, he thinks he's brave because he picked up the pen." I never said that, and I never meant that. Two separate things. Maybe I didn't make it clear enough in the thread. That could be my bad. But I didn't say John was brave because he picked up the pen. I said John picked up the pen and that John was brave. And so that's really what ignited this outrage and then this panic and this paranoia that just kind of exploded like all over the thread. I even saw something that appeared to me to be an insinuation that I was working with like some kind of animal welfare group that was in cahoots with like the meat industry or something like that. It was, I just picked up that vibe from one of the comments, and I might post that as well, but I'm not going to take another break now. But anyway, like I was saying earlier, what the debate really breaks down into, and I won't use the term argument because they have a little thing that if I say argument, I kicked out. And really, it's a debate. It's not an argument. I'm not there to argue. I'm presenting my viewpoint and debating theirs. And you know, Mr. Gary Francione is a very good lawyer because he definitely, played off the emotions of the audience there that was just so vehemently attacking me. And I thought that was kind of funny. I got a laugh about that because I'm like, wow, he didn't even address what I said. He addressed the reactions of the crowd and kind of made his comment off of that was completely tangent to what was originally presented. That's a good lawyer. Um, but what it boils down to is that I said, I think that um, what I said word for word, pretty much I could scroll up here. Anyway, what I said is that the people that go undercover and film in the slaughterhouses are brave, and that's what I said. That's the John is brave part, and I made an acknowledgement that there is filming taking place, and I also brought up some other stuff too. You can check it out. What it breaks down to is that the abolitionist crowd tends to think that there is no way, shape, or form that it will ever be right to cause cruelty to an animal. And I agree with that. Not in absolute terms, but I agree to that. The thing is, if the harm is being caused anyway, and there is some benefit to be derived from it, i.e., less harm is produced in the future, is that a good thing? And in my opinion, yes, it is. I have very strong spiritual beliefs against killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and the use of intoxicants. But at the same time, I have to process that against what I see in the world experientially. And getting back to this argument, um, I mean, the animals are going to die in these slaughterhouses anyway. Their fate is sealed, and they're not bringing in extra animals so they can be murdered for these undercover whistleblowers, essentially, to film them. So no additional harm is being created by their presence. And even a few people on there, I think, agreed with that. They danced around it, but they agreed. And if there were extra harm being created, I would be totally against it. And I made that clear in my responses. Some people just jumped to conclusions. It happens a lot. So what I came up with is a thought experiment to kind of prove my point of why consequentialism, not the ends justify the means consequentialism, because the context of the act is important. It's very important, you know. And in this context, I made a very specific thought experiment that is totally analogous to what's happening. And I'll read that here. Okay, so here's my thought experiment. If there was a button to press that would end an individual's life, an animal, and a large group of people were lined up behind it, ready to press it, should you not, where the event would never be seen or known to any individuals outside the room if one of them was to press it, and you were given the opportunity to press it, the button, thus alerting the world to specific atrocities taking place that day to that individual, would you press it? Or would you not press it and have the atrocity against that individual, not that group, the individual, never be known? I go on to say, as strong as my spiritual beliefs are against cruelty and killing, I would be compelled to press the button so that individual's life was not wasted in vain. If I was the animal sentenced to death, that is what I would want, for someone to know what happened to me individually. If you would not, please explain to me how factory farm slaughterhouse footage is any different and why you would want your individual death to remain a secret. Because ultimately, factually, it will remain a secret. And that experiment, as well as the actual slaughterhouse where the undercover footage is taking place, there aren't a whole lot of leaps there that are being made. And the logic is kind of tight, in my opinion. But I mean, if you see a defect with it, point it out to me. But, you know, that's the whole thing. I know the footage is beneficial. If you watch Earthlings, you know, if you're not vegan and considering going vegan, watch Earthlings. Check it out. It will change your perspective on things. When you see what's really going on, it'll blow your mind. And I've known people that have converted to veganism after watching the undercover footage. I mean, and what Gary's afraid of here is that there's this notion, there's a divide between welfarists and abolitionists. Abolitionists believe in total freedom for animals and no cruelty. Welfarists kind of believe in less cruelty. And, you know, they're at odds with each other. And I kind of agree with that. That being said, a 70% solution now is better than a 100% solution later, especially when animals' lives are at risk. And that's why I support the position I do in this thought experiment, which is essentially the position of the undercover worker, you know, that would probably have to, you know, kill the animal to get the footage, but not necessarily to get the footage, because the animal would be killed anyway. It's just going to be filmed. And that's why this experiment's applicable. But yeah, you know, like, they're very up in arms about this over at the abolitionist vegan movement under Gary Francione, because the, you know, essentially they thought I was kind of promoting the notion that cruelty against animals is justifiable if the ends justify the means. That is not what I was saying at all. This is for this very specific instance. And ultimately, it's kind of a microcosm against the arguments for moral absolutism, because you can see how this rigid and flexible morality actually causes harm to animals by not being beneficial and causing people to reduce their harm towards animals by seeing the footage and going vegan, it is pretty much, there's some harm taking place that wouldn't have otherwise happened. You know, if no, and that's the whole case that I make here, and that's just how I see it, because I know from experience that people convert to veganism after watching this footage, and also from the standpoint on the individual level, it's kind of dehumanizing and cruelty in its own way to say that the individual's death doesn't matter, that the individual animal's death doesn't matter, because we already know about the group. And he hasn't responded yet, but I think that's what it's going to break down to in his debate against this, is that, we already know about it. It's not a secret, so it doesn't need to be filmed anymore. And that's not necessarily the case. For that individual, I think the individual's story needs to be known. And, whether or not the animal would consent to that or is able to consent is another thing entirely. They probably have no opinion on it, but that's just a guess. What I've seen and all this is based on is that the shocking footage that's recovered from slaughterhouses has converted some people to veganism. And, I know people that have seen it and they've turned vegan. I'm not one of them, but there's some people that just have to be shocked into action, and I see that as beneficial for the abolitionist movement. And I don't think that the filming is irreconcilable with the abolitionist movement. And that's pretty much about it in regards to that. And yeah, like Linda made some offhand comments about American imperialism and all that was completely tangential, and then I got threatened to be banned from the forum, or the discussion, so they might not even post it. I'll put it up. But yeah, that's an entirely different issue, and I won't get into that with this video. But let me know what you guys think. Send me a message on YouTube, or I might post this to Reddit too. So, let me know what you think, or you see any holes in either of the arguments. All right, peace. Take care.